Have you ever written an entire speech and it has great information, but when you read it out loud, it's missing something because it just doesn't sound like you, although you're sharing all of your own ideas. That disconnection between what you wrote and how you actually talk is a common challenge, and we are going to discuss how to deal with it in this conversation. Before we do, I'd like to say hello to you. If you've been with me before, welcome back. Always a pleasure to see you. If this is your first time, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce myself. I am Dr. Shalonda Jones. I am a communication scholar and a public speaking coach. I specialize in helping professionals, entrepreneurs, people in leadership positions learn to transform whatever concerns they have with public speaking into confidence so they can get the respect they deserve as knowledgeable and credible professionals. If you want to improve your public speaking skills, become more confident, articulate, ensure that your message is making sense and easy for the listeners to understand, then hit the subscribe button because I share tips and techniques all the time that are easy to do and scientifically proven to work. Make sure you hit the notification button as well so you'll know when a new video is posted. Also, if there's a specific public speaking related topic you'd like for me to discuss, leave a comment. I am always happy to make a video to help you. For our conversation today, there are three main topics for our discussion. Number one, why does the disconnect happen between what you write and how you actually talk? Next, I'll talk about a couple of elements that makes conversation sound natural and engaging. And after I talk about what makes conversation sound natural and engaging, the third thing we'll talk about is how you can use those elements in your speech to make what you wrote more consistent with how you actually talk. When this conversation comes to an end, you will be far more comfortable with speaking with your audience rather than sounding like you're a robot or reading to them. Let's start by talking about why a speech might not sound like you and how you talk when you write it. Most times when people write a speech and it doesn't match how they would naturally talk, it's because they use what I call a term paper voice. That means what they've written probably has longer sentences, a lot more formal words, and there's no place in those sentences or between the sentences for them to actually pause and breathe while they're speaking. That's not a bad thing because writing is designed to be read. So of course it's going to be a little more polished, it will be edited, and it's usually pretty technical. But when we speak, speaking has life. It's usually vibrant. Your voice goes up and down. The sentences are a lot shorter. You even take a breath in between sentences. Those vocal elements helps the audience to connect with your message because it feels more humanized, which leads to my second point. What makes spoken language sound more engaging and dynamic than what you've written in your speech? Now, to be honest, there are some excellent writers who help the readers through the written word feel connected to the message. But the reality is writing has a different format than speaking. I know this because I am an author. I did write a book called The Heart of Public Speaking. It's available on Amazon. I'll provide the link in the caption below. One of the most valuable lessons I learned writing my book was to take elements of my natural speaking style and incorporate them into what I wrote in the book. And that's one of the things you're going to do as you're actually writing out your speech. One of the natural elements we all tend to use when we're speaking and we're not necessarily aware of because it's a natural speaking element is a contraction. And I just did it. I said we're rather than we are. When you're writing your speech, throw in a few contractions, as many as you can. Contractions flow better in spoken language. Another element is to use shorter phrases that allow for you to pause and breathe. I do have an example of a longer sentence I will read to you, and we'll compare it to the shorter sentence I am going to say. Today, I'd like to discuss 3 vital strategies that will assist you in refining your communication skills to make you a better and confident public speaker. That was a mouthful. Here's the shorter version of that sentence. Today, I'll share 3 quick and easy techniques to help you speak with more confidence and clarity. There is value in shorter sentences. Now, one time one of my students told me they needed all the extra stuff in the sentences to help them meet the speaking time. To that I say, use more questions. Ask questions, which is the third technique we typically do when we're talking in everyday conversation anyway. The next time you have a casual conversation with someone, pay attention to when you might ask a question and turn around and answer that question right after asking it. For instance, sometimes we say things like, did that even make sense? And we immediately answer the question with, yes, it makes perfect sense. And we go on to justify why it made sense. Infusing questions in your speech when you're speaking is powerful because number one, it will help you to meet your speaking time. 2, that's something we all naturally do when we're communicating with other people anyway. And 3, it helps to engage your audience. It brings their attention back to the information you're sharing. Because the one thing I know is when there's a question, it makes us perk up and pay more attention. Those are 3 things we do naturally when we communicate every day in regular conversation. They're very easy to add to the speech you've written. That said, the last thing I'll do in this conversation is show you how to add those elements into your speech you've written so it sounds more like how you talk. When you finished writing your entire speech, read it out loud into your voice recorder on your phone so you can catch the places where you naturally pause and take a breath. That's how you're going to shorten the sentences to make them sound like a natural conversation. Second, pay attention to words that are a bit challenging to say. If it's difficult to say the words, it's difficult to hear the words. This might be a good time to identify where you can incorporate contractions, or you may even find a different word to use. After you've identified where you can use shorter phrases and modify some of the words, now it's time to turn that full document into bullet points with brief notes to remind you what you were going to discuss. If you use an entire outline, full sentences, a complete document, that's going to tempt you to read to your audience. I said it before, I'll say it again. The fastest way to disconnect from your audience is to read your entire presentation to them. I am not saying it's necessary to memorize your entire presentation, but there definitely needs to be points where you're actually speaking with your audience. The last step in transforming the speech you wrote into the way you actually talk is to practice saying your speech using the bullet points you created. I recommend recording yourself so you can see and hear your speech. That is not the time to pick apart how you look. You look great. That is not the time to be disappointed with how you sound. Your voice is amazing. That is the opportunity to make sure your speech is spoken and sounds like a genuine, natural conversation. Just about done with this conversation. The last thing I want to say is you do not need to strive for perfection. Strive for being genuinely who you are and authenticity. That's why the 3 main things I shared with you in this conversation were, number 1, when you write a speech, it's a lot more formal in writing than it is when you actually speak. That's why that disconnect occurs. 2, take natural elements of your everyday speaking style and infuse them into your speech when you're writing it. Number 3, practice. Practice saying your speech. Those techniques will help you to feel confident about the information you're sharing and will help your audience to get value from the main points in your speech. Thank you again for your time. I really appreciate you spending your valuable time with me. As I always say, time is the most valuable commodity because it is the one resource. Once it's spent, it's impossible to get it back. So thank you for spending your valuable time with me. As always, Until I see you next time, do something today and every day to help make your greatest ambition your greatest accomplishment.